Hi folks, I want to chat a little bit about Eduard kits, or more specifically, Eduard's 1/48th scale Great War aircraft, and even more specifically, the ones I've purchased and built over the years. And this was prompted by a video I watched just the other day, a discourse and rant admitted freely by the presenter on a recent Eduard release just in the last couple of years of one of their World War II aircraft. And we'll get to that in a moment. But before I talk about Eduard kits, I have to go back and talk a little bit about Aurora kits, because back around 2018 or 19, I don't think I'd even heard of Eduard as a company. In fact, I'm almost positive I didn't even know this company existed. But I had decided I was going to engage in a trip through nostalgia and start building Aurora Great War aircraft in 1/48th scale or thereabouts, because I'd had a few of those planes when I was a kid. And as I recall, two of the first kits I bought online, I think I went to oldmodelkits.com, were the Fokker DR1 triplane, of course, and the Fokker D8 or E5. I guess it was originally known as the E5 and then became the D8. I chose those kits because I thought they were pretty cool airplanes. I had both of them as a kid. Of course, just assembled with thick modeling cement and slapped on the decals, no painting at all. And I said, let's see if I can do them better now, 50, 60, almost 60 years later. One thing I discovered, remembered, and recalled was the kits went together very easily because they're designed, I think, for 10-year-olds. Scale is approximate. The triplane, I learned as I picked up more kits, was wildly over scale. It's a lot closer to 1/40th scale than 1/40. It isn't 1/48th at all. The D8 is pretty nicely scaled. A little narrow, actually, in the fuselage, but otherwise, the wing might be a little bit not quite as deep as it should be. We'll get to that. I was happy to build them. But while I lucked out with the very ancient decals that came with this kit, the Fokker DR1 from Aurora, originally molded in the either late 50s or early 60s, I did not have the same luck at all with the D8. Those decals were shot. I didn't really expect much better. So I started hunting around, and that's when I discovered Eduard and was fascinated by the lineup of aircraft they had, and they looked to have pretty neat decals. And of course, I could have bought aftermarket decals, but I started acquiring Eduard kits and was very pleased that in most cases, I could use the decals, not just the national insignia markings, but some of the decoration, and such as the lozenge camouflage. And for the most part, with just a little fiddling, get them on and make a pretty good looking kit. But of course, by then, even though I did, in the end of the day, acquired 20 Aurora aircraft, there were some repeats. So, I think 18 separate aircraft, and I built 13 of them. But in the meantime, I had been buying Eduard kits, and I've bought a similar number, but not built quite so many. So here is my Eduard lineup of completed kits. There are 4 Allied aircraft. Didn't I do my math right? I guess I should say 9, yeah. 4 Allied aircraft, 9 German. The Sopwith triplane, the Henri, Newport 11, SE5A, and the German aircraft. There's another Fokker D8 in Polish markings, false D3A. Of course, the Fokker DR1, Albatross D5A, and a two-seater, a Roland C2. Okay, now, to get back to the video I watched, this was a build of a Japanese Zero, and the presenter was lamenting, rightly so, just what a pain in the butt it was to build it due to misfits, misalignments, and then there was an issue with the new decals that Eduard is enclosing. I've seen demos of those where the backing or the transparency actually lifts off or disappears or peels off after it dries. None of these kits have that, thank goodness. Now these kits date in terms of original release from about 1999 through about 2017 or 18. And I have to say that, first of all, all of them have I'm going to call them the traditional decals, so I haven't experienced that hinky issue with getting rid of the backing, the lifting, the transparent part. Never dealt with it myself. When I watched it being done, I thought, ooh boy, not so sure about that. Why didn't they just stick with the ones they had, which were pretty darn good? I have to say that I feel that the trickiest thing about a Great War or biplane, or in this case here and here, triplane build, is wing attachment. And in all of the cases here, of course, this is a monoplane, I didn't have any issues at all. Fit was really good. However, with my favorite aircraft, the SE5A, it was a bit hinky, to put it mildly, in terms of closing up the fuselage. And I put that down to the interior frame that goes in, the complexity of it, and my insistence determination always to fit pilots, almost always, except in one case here, aftermarket pilots into these planes, which in theory the cockpits were designed for, but not really. So that always, adds some build issues. Any other issues about these builds are builder errors, not kit errors. I did have a couple of issues. I can see it now. Of course, all of these planes have been transported from Montana to Oregon and survived that trip, sort of. But landing gear assemblies, it's cockeyed on the Roland and set a bit too high so that the plane actually sits a bit too low on the Albatross. Both of those are builder's errors, not kit errors. Rigging, I didn't use turnbuckles or metal wiring, and in some cases I got so frustrated with rigging, again, my limitations, that there are a few planes here where we do not have the elevator or rudder control lines in place. Some of them have it, some of them don't. That's generally the last thing I do with rigging. And if you don't see it on one of the planes, it's entirely due to the fact that by that point I was totally fed up with Easy Line. Again, that isn't a Eduard issue. That's an Easy Line Mark Huber issue. But generally speaking, the quality of all of these planes, which were originally molded and released over almost a 20-year period by Eduard, is quite good. I made them more complicated by my insistence of putting in aftermarket pilots. but I'm still glad I did. With all that being said, I fully understand that just because a manufacturer has done a good job in terms of their quality control and how they design and produce kits does not assure that that will continue forever, and that even the best companies can have and produce stinkers. So I do take the presenter absolutely at his word that the just because the kit looked good in the box doesn't guarantee it's going to be an easy build. It can be really, really frustrating when major parts don't seat properly, where one has to go to undue lengths to get pieces to fit, where instructions can be misleading. My biggest issue always with the Eduard instructions, although I love the fact that they're in booklet form and they have nice color guides. The booklet, and this is me now, the booklets are small, very small, you know, and for me, it's sometimes hard to follow along. They aren't booklets for the dyslexic. Now, I'm actually not dyslexic, but sometimes when I look at diagrams, I'd swear I am. And these are pretty good, but I've seen much, much better. But that being said, I'm happy with this collection. I think I'm going to be very cautious about buying any new Eduard kits. I've pretty much exhausted, I think, their Great War range, and I've got plenty in the stash. I do have that Japanese Zero sitting up in the stash. I thought it'd be a pretty cool build, and now I know there are going to be some real challenges. So that's the story. All errors here are, in my case, the fault of the builder, not of the company. But this is a little bit apples and oranges. A different era of plane and a different period of production, and the old decals. Maybe Eduard should go back to those, eh? Okay, that's it. Thanks for watching.